Hi class, I'm Jocelyn Ireland, a librarian on the Utica campus of MVCC. The purpose of this video is to help you with researching for your final essay. I'm going to briefly highlight some of the requirements for this essay. We'll talk about where you can search for primary and secondary sources, and then I'll touch upon Chicago-style citations. Make sure you read the assignment description that your professor provided carefully. She provides really helpful tips on what to focus on. Just keep in mind that a biography isn't just a summary of facts and events about someone's life. You're investigating what is their legacy, what made them into what they became. These people had loves and fears, childhoods, tragedies, and triumphs. Tell their story. Again, read the assignment requirements carefully to investigate what your professor's expectations are, and don't hesitate to ask her questions. These are just a couple of highlights about their requirements. The version I have says the paper needs to be at least 4 pages long with at least 10 sources, 4 of which need to be primary sources. And your sources need to be cited in Chicago style, which we'll get into a little more detail later. A primary source is a piece of evidence created during the time period you're studying, or by someone who personally experienced the events. Think of it as a first-hand account, a direct window into the past. For example, if your topic is a famous leader like Julius Caesar, his own writings, speeches, or coins bearing his image would be primary sources. You can also use historical contemporaries of that person who have direct knowledge or observations of that person. For example, if your person that you're writing about is Queen Victoria, proceedings of her coronation, memoirs of her subordinates could also be primary sources, in addition to her speeches, laws, or letters, because they were of her time period and directly connected to her. Primary sources help historians and you answer one of the most important questions in studying the past. How do we know what we know about this person? They provide the raw evidence that supports what we understand about the person's life, beliefs, and accomplishments. In contrast, secondary sources are created after the fact by people analyzing or interpreting the past, like modern history books, documentaries, or scholarly articles. These help you understand how others have interpreted primary evidence. So where do you go to find primary sources? Searching the open web through a search engine like Google is a good place to start. There's been a lot digitized by museums and libraries, private organizations, and archives, and put right on the internet. You can start by Googling your person and the words primary sources. So let's give it a try. I'm going to pretend like I'm doing a biography on Queen Elizabeth I of England. For a famous leader of a major world power like Queen Elizabeth, you should be able to find transcripts of speeches, laws they passed, letters they wrote, just to name a few options. So I've Googled her name and the word primary sources. We want to pay special attention to reliable sites like museums, libraries, and archives, but other sources may give us some ideas. The first thing that comes up is this AI overview. Now this would not be a primary source, but it could give us some ideas, and it's providing us some links of places to go check out. So for example, it's suggesting the National Archives of the United Kingdom, and that also happens to be the first result in our Google search as well. So I'm just going to click on that. So this is filled with digitized copies of primary sources. We can see letters and speeches and reports from her time period. You may also find websites that are kind of like a launching off point. For example, this website, the Elizabeth Files, it's a curated collection of links giving you some ideas of where primary sources might be stored. So I'm going to click on this just to open it up. So this took us to a website, the Internet Archive, and this is a digitized book, a scanned book copy. So I'm just selecting it and it's flipping the pages for me. So whenever you find a digitized book, just make sure you pay attention to when was this book created. So this book was written in the 1800s. So this book itself will not be a primary source, but is a series of letters from that time period. So this is an example of a secondary source that's holding primary sources. These can be particularly helpful because they often provide introduction or a preface It's kind of preparing you for what these letters are going to contain and highlighting some important features about them. So these can help you analyze the primary sources. Again, this preface would not be a primary source, but look at all these letters that it contains. So as I continue flipping through, again, introduction, probably give me some more context to the time period and what's going on when these letters were created. And then it has digitized copies or transcribed copies of letters. So these letters would be a primary source. You'll have the most success searching with Google for ideas for primary sources, but you can also go to known sites that often contain primary sources, such as Project Gutenberg. So Project Gutenberg is a website that's filled with digitized books that are out of copyright. You'll have to use your critical thinking skills because not all of these will be primary sources. There'll be a lot of secondary sources in here too. So I'm going to search for Queen Elizabeth I, and I'm getting several results. Now you won't know for sure if it's a primary or secondary source until you open it up. For example, this book, when I clicked on the title, I see that it's a historical account of observations of English society, culture, and governance, and it was written in the late 16th century. So since it was written during the Elizabethan era, it would be considered a primary source. Some other possibilities, I see this one here is about memoirs of the court of the Queen of England. So if there are actual memoirs from people that were in her court, that would be another primary source. Let's move on to secondary sources. Secondary sources are going to be much easier to find. They could be biographies, historical journals, documentaries, or just simply books about this person. And there will be several to choose from. You'll need to explore several and decide on which are the most helpful to the questions you're trying to answer. Your professor says you can use history.com or biography.com for basic biographical information. For this video, I'm going to focus on secondary sources that you'll find through the library website. So I'm on the library homepage. If you've never been here before, you can go under Academics and choose Libraries. It'll take you right here. And I'm going to start out simple and just search for the person that I'm researching. Now you may come across some things that might be primary sources, but the vast majority of these are either historical journals or books written about the life of Queen Elizabeth. And again, a good indicator is when it was written. You can use filters to help you narrow down your search. Also, you can add more keywords to focus on maybe something particular about this person. Just keep in mind the more words you search with, the less results you're going to retrieve. Now, if you are off campus and you're not available to come to the library to pick up something in person, you can choose the filter available online, and that'll ensure everything in your result list can be accessed directly through the library website. So I'm getting a lot of ebooks right now. And if I want to open one of these up, I can just click on the title. It's helpful to kind of read the description to see is this really worth your time. But if it is, you might have download PDF option if it's a journal article, but since this is an ebook, it's direct me to a database to open it up. Now, if you're off campus, it will ask you to sign in to prove that you're an MVCC student. It's the same login as Brightspace or your student email. And here we just click on Access Options and choose PDF Full Text, and it will open up the ebook. And I like going over this table of contents and directing myself to a section of the book that stands out to me. And interestingly enough, it looks like this book also has transcriptions of letters, so there might be primary sources within the secondary source too. So if you find something that you think you might use in your paper, just make sure you save the citation and make sure you get the Chicago-style citation, notes and bibliography version. Now these citations are made by a machine, so they're not always 100% correct. For example, for some reason this database put the author's first name first, so we would just need to flip that around. The last name should come first, so it would be Kendall, Paul. I'm just going to head back to my result list. I'd also like to point out that you can actually save results to your library account. To do that, just click on the Sign In option in the upper right-hand corner, choose MVCC Login, and since I'm already logged into my account, it actually recognized me. I didn't have to log in again. But if you're not logged in somewhere else, it will ask you to log in. Again, same login as Brightspace or your MVCC email address. And now I can pin results that I want to save. And to do that, you just select the little thumbtack icon, and that'll save it to your favorites. And now I can come back another time, sign in again, click on the little thumbtack, and it'll take me to the list of everything that I've saved. And again, this is an easy way to grab the citation or just get back to that original source. Besides this main search box, there's also individual databases you should check out too for secondary sources. I'm going to click on A to Z databases, but you can also, right from the library homepage, there's also an A to Z databases button there as well. I'm going to click on that. And if you just need a very basic general overview about your person's life, go to Gale eBooks. So I clicked on G. Now I'm going to go to Gale eBooks. This is a library database that has digitized encyclopedias. And just search for your person's name. And if there's multiple options available, look at what type of encyclopedia it's coming from and also how long it is too. You'll want to find one that has as much information as possible. So I'm going to choose this 4-page one. So again, these are not going to go into great detail, but it'll be a nice overview about this person's life, their accomplishments, and any major historical events that took place during their life. Another good database to go to is JSTOR. So I'm going to click on J and JSTOR. And again, you can search for your person's name, or if there's a particular event that you're wondering if you can find more about, put that in too. So these are going to be more historical journals. Again, it really depends on what your questions are that you want to answer. So if one thing that you want to investigate more about is how people dressed in that time period, this might be a good option for you. But just plan on spending some time exploring these different options, because you really won't know how helpful they are until you open it up and scan through it. But all of these sources in this database will have a citation button, and to open it up, just click on the title and that'll open the article up for you. I also want to point out there are video databases too, filled with documentaries. Academic Video Online is a good option. Also Films on Demand. And another video database is called Canopy. All of those are good options for documentaries that would be secondary sources. Let's talk a little bit about Chicago formatting. The last page of your paper will be your bibliography. Chicago style calls the list of your sources the bibliography. You may be familiar with MLA calling it works cited page, or APA calls it references. So this slide has a screenshot of a bibliography example from Purdue OWL's website. Something unique about Chicago style is that the citation entries are single-spaced. The rest of your paper will be double-spaced, but these entries on the bibliography are single-spaced, with an extra space between entries. And also notice how each citation has a hanging indent. That means the first line is aligned all the way over to the left, and all the other lines of this entry are indented 1/2 inch. That helps the last name of the first author stand out more. So if you're using library resources and copy and pasting the citation it provides, your bibliography entry is created for you for that source. You still need to proofread it to make sure it's created correctly. The Library and Learning Commons have a citation guide to help you with creating citations. It's likely already in your Brightspace course site, but it's also on the library website. So I'll just show you how to get to the citation guide real quick. On the library homepage, there's a Citing Your Sources button. I'm going to click on that. We're doing Chicago style, so I'll click on Chicago. And here we have the Chicago style citation guide. So this guide has a table of contents to help you navigate through the document. So let's say you're citing a web page. So we can use our table of contents to identify how to cite a web page. So I'm going to click on this web page with an author, and it gives you a template for how the footnote's going to look and also what the bibliography page entry will look like too. So it gives you a template, but also examples of a finished product. So it'll be up to you to kind of fit in the parts and pieces of your source to create a citation. One of the main distinguishing features of Chicago style is the use of footnotes for in-text citations. This slide has screenshots of how to do a footnote in a variety of software programs. Let's see how footnotes work in action in a Microsoft Word document. So I have an example of a bibliography page. So it's a lot easier to create a footnote when you have the bibliography entry already done, and you'll see why. So the source that I'm going to do a sample footnote is this source, so I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to scroll up. So I've already made a sample paraphrase that's coming from this source. So when you paraphrase or directly quote something, or just get a piece of data that you need to give attribution to that author for, we're going to create a footnote for that sentence. So I'm going to place my cursor at the end of the sentence, and in Microsoft Word you go to References and then Insert Footnote. And when you do that, it automatically jumps you to the footer. So you can see it put a little superscript 1, and now we're in the footer. So I'm going to paste the bibliography page entry into the footer. And all we have to do is kind of modify this just a little bit. So this is a journal article. So I'm back in the Chicago Citation Guide, and it gives us the template. And you'll see in footnotes that the author's first name comes first, followed by the last name. In the bibliography page, the last name comes first. Some other major differences are that the bibliography page has these little periods to kind of separate out the different sections, and the footnote just has commas. So those are the main differences that I'm going to change with my footnote entry. So right now I've got the last name coming first, so I'm just going to take that out, and I'm going to put it after the first name with a comma, get rid of that period, and then I'm just going to put commas instead of periods. And also, the page this came from, we're not going to put a page range, we're going to put the exact page that this quote came from. So this came from the first page of the article, so it's page 342. So I'm just going to leave 342, put a comma, and then the link to the resource. And that's my footnote. Now if I'm going to cite this again, you don't have to enter all of that information again. So I'm just going to put some nonsense in here, just as an example. And I'm going to insert another footnote, pretending like I'm citing it again. Now I don't have to put this whole thing over again. All I have to do is put the author's last name and a little bit of the title. It's a shortened version of the title. And then the page number wherever this came from. Let's say it came from the following page. And I would just make sure that the formatting is consistent. So your citation guide will give you examples of how to do like shortened footnotes after when you're citing a source more than once. So that's on page 8 and 9. So it tells us the author's last name, shortened version of the title, and the page number. And the next page shows you examples, let's say if there's 2 authors or if there's like 3 authors. Some sources are not easy to cite. Sometimes you might have a primary source within a secondary source. Here are some examples of citations where the source is held within another source. This example is from a letter that's published in a book. So the letter might be our primary source, even though it's published in a secondary source. And letters often don't have titles. So it starts with the letter writer's name, then a short description, and then the date, if we know it, and then the word in, followed by the name of the book, the book's author, editor, and then the book's publication information. Citations and research for primary sources can certainly be tricky, so don't hesitate to reach out to a librarian or a writing tutor for support. You can schedule an appointment with a writing tutor right through the Learning Commons website, and you can also go to the library's reference desk for research or citation support. There's also a chat feature on the library website where you'll be talking with a live person. And always feel free to email me for assistance. And we can also schedule a time for you to come visit me in the Learning Commons in Wilcox Hall. Thank you so much for watching this video, and good luck with your research.